Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm super excited about this one. I've been waiting for a while to kick this one off. I am going to announce kind of what I have downstairs for a little mini start to a home lab. It's not much, but I'm excited. We're going to talk about what kind of servers I got, what kind of power there is, how I'm putting them together, what kind of infrastructure I'm going to try and run with, and how I plan on migrating some of the stuff I've used before in other videos onto the servers and kind of getting the home lab series and the Kubernetes series kicked off. So stay tuned and let's go. So for right now, this is what I got. This is the big announcement is I actually bought, they were on sale on Amazon. So I picked them up through Amazon because they're still somehow cheaper on Amazon than through B-Link's actual shop. But the company is called B-Link and they make little NUC PCs, little mini PCs. And I got two S12 Pro mini PCs from B-Link through an Amazon, either a Prime deal or something like that. I don't remember. But they look like this. So this is them on my wall. And basically what's going on here is I did some, haven't done any cable management yet. They're just sitting down there plugged into the wall. But I have a switch that I'm going to try and put down there and stuff like that. But for now, they are literally the damage-free command strips. And I command stripped the back and stuck them on the wall. And that's actually what I've done so far with them. So that's where they're at right now. Exactly in the pictures where they're at right now. I'm not sure, obviously, that they will stay like that. I think I might try and get a small rack actually, and there's a few different options that I found online to actually like rack them to get cable management and have them in a rack and just make it look a little bit better. But obviously since they're that small, they have a lot of benefits. So the first thing is they pull like no power, like whatsoever. Even though I have them on all the time and running pretty good, they don't really pull any power. I think it's only like 10 or 12 watts or something like that, or maybe even less. So it's nowhere near compared to like going out and buying a whole server and putting it in a rack and stuff like that. The second thing is they are quiet. I don't hear them. It's not this big humming sound in my basement as some huge server tower or mini data center like hums away. They're right there and I don't hear them at all. Even if you're standing next to them, you don't hear them. So they're just little mini PCs. I will put a link to where I got them in Amazon. I don't get anything from it, obviously, but if you want to check out the specs and all that kind of stuff, and then B-Link has their own store too with some ones that are like way more powerful than this. Intel also sells Intel NUCs, I've heard, are pretty good. I went with B-Link just because they were on sale and stuff like that, and I've had good luck with them so far, but Intel also does them, and they're very good, and they're much more expandable, where you can put in your own RAM and stuff like that, and some of the B-Link ones do that too. But I think the whole mini PC idea is really cool versus like buying a whole server and a bunch of servers, especially if you're just getting started. It's a much cheaper way to get started where you're just confident that what's in it is what's in it. I actually think the next step, like the next thing I might buy would either be one more, and we'll talk about why I might buy one more in a minute, more than just like more compute or anything. But the other thing I might mess around and purchase next would be some kind of a NAS so I can set up, databases and stuff like that. So, but for right now, this is what it is. And I will show you what I have on them. So this is Proxmox. It's an operating system that I put on each one. So you can download Proxmox on each one and you can log into them. So it's just on my private network, and I have 40.2 and then 40.3 is also the same thing. It's just a self-signed cert right now, and then I can log in. But I don't actually have to do that on that one because I call them Batman and Robin, of course. But the thing is, actually, if you go here to here and you go to cluster, I actually have them clustered together. So Batman is the 192.168.40.2, and then Robin would be the 40.3. But I can actually manage them both from the 40.2 one because they're clustered together. So they're on the same network. I have them clustered together so I can manage them both from either one. So I don't have to log into each of my servers separately. They're all clustered together under the same data center that, of course, I call the Batcave. So if you can't tell, I really like Batman. So that's why that's like that. But then basically how I have it started right now is so that I can expand to my heart's content here is this 8000 machine right here is a Cloud Init template. So it's a Cloud Init template of Ubuntu. So the same way you would go to DigitalOcean or you would go to Google Cloud or anything like that, and you would say, give me a Ubuntu VM, it normally will use a Cloud Init template and just spin up the VM. And that way, every VM that gets created is created the same. And it's very easy to just like click and run. So that's exactly what this is. So I can click this and clone it and basically just like boot up an Ubuntu that will look very much like this, as you can see. So it will have 2 processors, 2 gigs of memory, and a boot disk. And I can just click that and I only have one up right now that's called the Batmobile, obviously. But if I wanted another one, I don't have to like totally go through and like nitpick and make a machine. I can just click this one and I can create it from the Cloud Init template. So right now I only have the one, but as we'll go into later, I think I'm going to have about 6 on each one for now to start on both Batman and Robin. And one of the things I'm going to try and do with this is, again, like I mentioned in my previous video, I'm going to try and migrate some of my stuff into Kubernetes on this and try and turn it into more of like an enterprise-y type thing with some logging and monitoring and hopefully some kind of an API or front end and able to handle much more data and process and see how things work and where I can plug and play more workers and modules and stuff like that. And that is going to kind of live here. And I'll explain a little bit more of that when we get to the architecture section, but that's going to live here. So what I'm going to do for that is there's another streamer. He streams on Twitch and makes very, very good YouTube videos. His name is Techno Tim. So shout out to him. He has again, I'm going to link his YouTube and his GitHub here, but he has an Ansible playbook for basically bootstrapping a highly available K3s cluster. So K3s is basically lightweight Kubernetes that you can put onto a group of nodes and basically get up and running with Kubernetes fast. It brings up a bunch of other stuff too, like kubevip, MetalLB, all that kind of stuff, so that right out of the box with one Ansible run, you have a highly available cluster that you have internal and external access to if needed, and virtual IPs and all that kind of stuff. So this is what I use and I'm going to use to spin up K3s clusters. And then after that, basically, I guess we can get into the architecture portion of it. So this diagram, and I think we can zoom in a little bit. So here, I, of course, called it Golden Labs, because why wouldn't it be called the Golden Labs? But you see Batman and Robin over here, and it's a little hard. Again, it's not the best diagram ever, but it's the free version, so it's fine. The little boxes in here would be the Ubuntu VMs. So those I can spin up as many as I want to, and those will be the nodes for my Kubernetes cluster. And again, if I ever run out of space or anything like that, all it is spinning up another virtual node, which in my case is just going to my Cloud Init template and saying, oh, I need you to make me another one of yourself. So just spin up another Ubuntu. And then that would just create more and more nodes down here. Again, obviously until you run out of actual physical resources on the B-Link servers. But until then, obviously like that's the point of Kubernetes, is you can scale it with nodes. And Kubernetes will orchestrate all the workloads. But what I plan on doing is something very similar to, again, Techno Tim in some of his videos goes over, but I'm going to use Rancher and basically deploy Rancher to its own cluster. Now, again, I mentioned it down here that technically this is why I said I might want a third B-Link server, this third line here. Since I only have 2 physical servers, I can't get true high availability HA. I can get pseudo high availability by, as you can see here, I have one Rancher cluster, or have one Rancher node on Batman, and then I'd have 2 Rancher nodes on Robin, and like technically having 3 makes it high, 3 separate ones would make it highly available, but since it's not on 3 separate physical servers, if one of the 2 were to go down, it would technically bring my whole cluster down. So if I get a third B-Link, then I actually can keep both my, what I have dubbed GKs for Golden Kubernetes, but I can keep both my control plane and my Rancher clusters true high availability by keeping at least one node on each physical server. But for now, with the 2, it's pretend HA. But what Rancher will do is Rancher is a way to like basically GUI mode your Kubernetes environment. So I'm keeping Rancher on its own cluster that will have at least these 3 nodes. And the reason for that, why I don't just shove Rancher in the same cluster as everything else, is because if one of my workers accidentally scales to infinity and crashes a cluster, I would also lose Rancher. So I wouldn't be able to log into Rancher and control my clusters because it would be on the cluster that crashed. So if I keep Rancher on a separate cluster, I know it won't be affected by any of my workloads and it won't randomly tip over. And then again, if I get the third physical server and make it highly available, then I can be pretty positive that I will just always have Rancher available to me to control or at least see what happened if another cluster goes down and control them and try and get them back up and etc. So again, these GK ones stand for Golden Kubernetes, which I've dubbed it, living in Golden Labs, of course. So Kubernetes, just like whether it's on the cloud or through K3S, will have the control plane and then worker nodes. So same thing, control plane, you want it to be spread out between at least 3 nodes to get high availability. I won't get true high availability because technically, even though these are 2 nodes, they're on the same physical server. So if that server dies, it's not obviously HA because they need to have a vote if they're going to make decisions. So I should really constantly have at least 3 nodes with 3 running on different servers. So anyway, the control plane is basically how I'll be able to run cube control or kubectl, depending on what you call it, and actually control the thing. And same thing, Rancher can also connect to these clusters and do a lot of those things for me through a GUI, which is pretty cool. And then of course, these GK worker nodes are all the actual nodes doing the work. So they will be the nodes hosting subdomain workers and crawlers and, database runners or whatever it may be. Those actually get deployed to the worker nodes, and that will be the worker bees of the whole thing. And again, those can scale to as much as the B-links can handle, and they can talk to each other and all that kind of stuff. So they'll be running workers and nats and all that kind of stuff. So some of the things that we've gone over is mostly infrastructure, but as far as actually migrating some of the stuff that I talked about at DEF CON last time to this is kind of down here. So first of all, the DB architecture, I haven't quite decided yet. Again, right now, I'm still using the same database I used for my cloud storage stuff. It's just paying AWS and using a database. I'm keeping that one. But the idea of getting a NAS server and having my own database myself seems kind of interesting too. So I'm kind of playing with the idea back and forth. We'll see. The Rancher cluster, again, I already talked about this, that the Rancher cluster is by itself for failover purposes, so that if a cluster crashes because I accidentally coded something wrong or there's a bajillion workers and I DOS myself, I don't DOS the Rancher cluster. I need the 3rd physical server to go true HA. We already talked about that. Same thing. So very similar to some of my other stuff. I know I wrote some stuff in Python in the past, and I've kind of pretty much fully transitioned to writing Go. The reason for that is all of my workloads are containerized, and Go is very easy to compile on a Go image and then basically do a multi-stage build and take the compiled binary and just drop it on a Slim Alpine Docker image and have it be a super, super teeny Docker image. And that makes it very easy when I have limited amount of space and limited amount of resources like the 2 B-links to not be throwing around huge chunky Docker images that have to spin up forever and run and store itself. So I really like Go. I also really like coding in Go recently. I like the concurrency. I like all that stuff. It just works very well for me. So going forward, all my workers are written in Go at this point. I'm going to continue writing in Go. Any tools I come up with in the future are probably going to be written in Go. So that's kind of the plan. Before, I was using, in my DEF CON talk and with serverless stuff, I was using Amazon SQS for queuing. So my on-prem solution, when I move in here, I will use Nats, which I will link down below too. It's nats.io. But I will basically be using that as my queue/broker service or my messaging service, that kind of thing. It's very similar to an Apache Kafka, that kind of deal. And obviously the scheduling, scaling, all that kind of stuff comes with Kubernetes. So that's, again, one of the great parts about actually taking the time and moving it into Kubernetes. As far as an actual logging or monitoring stack, I'm not 100% sure what that will be yet, as far as how much room it would take up on the B-links to deploy some of the heavier stuff like Grafana or Prometheus and stuff like that, or if I want something a little simpler or what that may be. And then as far as scanning goes, I know people have asked me in the past, especially going to this local option of hosting it on my own thing, is everyone's worried about getting blocked by Cloudflare or IP banned or whatever, and that's a real thing. So some options I'm considering for that, which I haven't totally decided on yet, is I always have the option of doing a hybrid cloud where obviously some of my nodes wouldn't actually be local here, and some of the workers that might get IP banned would be in a cloud where I can just rotate the IP or spin up a new node or whatever. But one of the other options would be basically using a forward proxy and doing that type of a thing, and basically sending my traffic through a forward proxy, so it's actually not my IP going out there and doing stuff, and some other ones. So there's options for scanning that I haven't really decided on yet. As I build stuff out and test stuff, that will be decided later. But this is kind of the basic ideas of it. The B-Link servers downstairs, They're running. We have the Cloud Init templates. We're going to spin up Ubuntu stuff. Kubernetes is going to come up. And then I've already started, obviously, kind of off screen. All my stuff is containerized, so I've kind of worked on bringing that over into a Kubernetes environment already anyway. So hopefully K3S is pretty similar with that. And so more videos to come on this stuff for sure, but I just wanted to get it out there. I've been waiting to, take a picture of it and talk about it and what kind of my ideas are. But if you have any questions, obviously let me know. Just like always, comments, Twitter, or join the Discord, and I'm more than happy to talk about it. There will probably be much more videos on this in the future, especially as stuff gets going. So hopefully you guys like this. If you do, let me know. But other than that, this is the home lab, the very beginning, and I'm excited, and I hope you guys are too.